All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself today. The podcast with no name is back for episode 2. Thank you for everyone who tuned in last week and shared it, liked it, all that kind of stuff. And we're back. Grant, how are you, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Melbourne lockdown. It's about as fun as it can get at the moment. And obviously, happy Friday to yourself, Matt. How did you find the week?
It's all right. It's been the same as the last 6 months. There's not a lot of interesting things going on in lockdown, but there's a lot of sport, which is epic, and it's good for us, I guess, with this. So,
cool. Well, interestingly enough, I'm actually really excited. I'm going on a little jaunt on Monday.
Oh, well, hello.
Yeah, it's I'm doing the food shop. It's called the supermarket. Now, I don't know whether you've ever been this time of year, but it's the place to be. I've heard.
Some wild stuff going down there.
Well, that's it, mate. Rock and roll lifestyle.
Righto. First thing I wanted to touch on. Actually, I've got a bit of a surprise for you.
Okay.
Yeah, hang on. Bear with me.
Interesting.
Go marching in, when the saints go marching in. Oh, how I want to be with St. Kilda, when the saints go marching in.
Come on, the Saints. Sorry about that. I had to get it out of the way.
No, that's fair enough, mate. It's for those of you that tuned in last week, we briefly touched on Matt's St Kilda team playing my Essendon Bombers last Sunday. And it was a 68-33 loss. Saints got up and best team won. Fair play to you.
Well, it's just a bit of friendly needle to start the show. I mean, I suppose the game it was about the way it should have gone, really. Bombers had a good portion of that side. Was it 11 lads missing?
10 or 11.
Out. It went the way it should have gone. Saints needed that win, I think, just to bounce back from the defeat to Geelong the week before. It sets us up nice. I think we've both actually looking at the run we've got to come to kind of close out the season. Both got pretty tough runs. I'd say probably Bombers is a bit tougher, but we needed that, I think, just to be able to kick on. Brisbane this weekend, not an easy game. Winnable, I think, for us, especially if we want to kind of keep those top 4 hopes alive. Bombers in Richmond. So tough ask. How do you think the rest of your season's going to go? What do you want to see?
The season's done for me in terms of Essendon. There's if we win all our games, which we won't, but we probably won't even be secured into the top 8. For those of you that don't really follow the AFL back home, the top 8 is kind of like the playoffs, like you'd see in the Championship. Now, in my opinion, with Essendon's season more or less over now, I would say 11 first team, or certainly out of the 22 of our best players, we've got 10 or 11 out. So I think the incentive for us is to just play those young kids and different to the Premier League in a sense, because you're kind of incentivized to finish as low as you can. In the AFL, if you're not in the 8, then you kind of want to finish as low as you can. And the reason for that is it's similar to the NFL system where the worst team in the league gets the up-and-coming and the best draft pick. So purely on that selfish point of view from Bombers, they should think, well, the lower we finish, the better kid that we get through. And, a lot of these younger kids get some experience behind the belt, really. I mean, there's about 5 outs the in and outs for the Richmond game. I want to give a shout out to Irving Mosquito, who got the nod. He'll be making his debut. We saw him in Sandringham probably about a year and a half ago now. But the funny thing about Mosquito, believe it or not, Irving Mosquito, that's his name, is he got announced in the team yesterday, and it was actually World Mosquito Day. Thursday, the 20th of August, is World Mosquito Day. I mean, so some things are just written in the stars. But there you are, Irving Mosquito making his debut this Saturday night against the Tigers. But yeah, that's that's all from Bombers, really. I want to move swiftly on from this topic, but anyway.
We'll put a rubber stamp on that one and we'll move swiftly on.
Yeah.
I guess the next thing we wanted to touch on was the Champions League. Coming up towards, obviously, Champions League final time now. PSG Bayern is our final.
Yeah.
I think it's on, is it Monday morning here?
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, Sunday evening in the UK, Monday morning here.
As we get to the final, I guess, or before we get to the final, it's worth touching on. I've got to take my hat off to you, actually. Last week, you told me get on Lyon, 11-1. Came in, beat City. So it's another kind of, another falling short for City and Guardiola.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right there. And yes, I got on them and won some money there, and it was just purely on, a bit of a hunch. And I kind of thought the bookies was kind of a bit of disrespect there for Lyon. I said last week why they may be a good pick, etc. But an underwhelming season for Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, in my opinion. Just winning the League Cup, this season. I mean, what are your thoughts? Massive underachievement.
Yeah, it's not enough, is it? You look at the squad on paper, you look at the amount of money they're spending on wages, the amount of money they spent on transfers, bringing people in. A League Cup win can't be seen as enough, I don't think, especially in a season like it was this year where it was all a bit mad, and you've got to take that into account. But yeah, it seems like that the Champions League for Guardiola at City has been like the holy grail, hasn't it? And they've just fallen short each time. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem, it's just not destined to be for them. And to fall short against someone like Lyon as well, I'm not taking anything away from them. But on paper, that's a game that City should be winning there.
I think they finished 7th in the league, in French League.
That's the French League as well. That's not like...
Exactly. So, so Pep Guardiola still can't get past can only get them to the quarterfinals. And interestingly enough, that is where David Moyes got Manchester United to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, believe it or not. So
I didn't forgot about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of that level, they should be getting to semi-final. They should be, in and around the final, to be honest. And I think that underachievement. I don't know what your thoughts are, but how long can Guardiola go at City with this happening? Is it one more year or?
Well, I only realised this week. His contract's up at the end of next season. Season.
There we go.
So, yeah, I would probably say one more year. I don't see him getting another deal. I don't know, unless he goes and wins everything this year and wants to kick on. But I don't see that happening. And I don't see him sticking around either. I think he'll want another challenge. I think he'll have taken that City side as far as it's going to go. I did until I found out that this was his last season on his contract. When you saw that the Barca job was up for grabs last week, I was instantly kind of thinking, is he going to go back there and be the saviour almost? Obviously not. So. This week we've learned that Koeman's got the job. But I did consider whether it was just time to call it a day with them. Had he taken them as far as he could? I'm guessing he's not going anywhere now. He'll stick with them this season. They've got chances to win everything the same as everybody else. We'll see what happens with them. It'll be interesting to see if you can. If you don't have too many new players coming in, you're not changing around any coaching staff. It's tough to kind of rebuild that side and get them to go again, rebuild that faith and rebuild that momentum. I think he might have taken them as far as he can take them.
No, I agree. And I think you when you mentioned earlier about Barcelona job and even I thought it'd be the sort of potentially the saviour there as well. And then you look the week before, Andrea Pirlo with no management experience gets the Juve job. So there's two jobs for me. He's got to see how Koeman does in this year and how Pirlo does, so that Juventus and Barcelona job. And even if he can see a lot of value now that Paris Saint-Germain at close to trophy or win it, got over that mental block that City can't get over, that semi-final, now they're at final. Does he look at some of their star players and think, well, I can go there, league's probably a guarantee, and two, let's see if I can, I can win that for them and get them there. So, and as I say, but Thomas Tuchel, as I say, to get him to a final, he's obviously doing doing that bad. So there might not be a job there, but who knows?
Yeah, good on him. I guess touching on from the other side of the draw, Munich were just incredible. Just tore Barca to pieces. And I don't know whether that says more about how good of a side Munich are or how much kind of strife that Barcelona are in. What's going on?
Well, yeah, exactly. It is a real... you're right what you say there. It is a mixture of the two, 100%. It's a big summer for Barcelona now. This 8-2, everyone remembers in the World Cup, the Germany-Brazil. It's a big mental thing and some of these players that they've got on their books, they've been around world football. They're experienced enough. It's a real problem. I put it down to a lot of older players in that team as well. I'm sure we'll touch on it, but Suarez, Messi, Vidal, Piqué, all 33 years of age. Rakitic, Busquets, 32 years of age. Jordi Alba, 31. Griezmann, 29.
Yeah.
There's a problem. And other than probably Rakitic, I would say that all of them started the game against Bayern Munich.
Yeah. No, I think it is. It's not an issue until it is. And then you realise that I think that the thing with Barcelona is what they've had is that for a long time now, they've had that culture, the winning culture. They've been loyal to players. They've had players who spent their entire careers there. They spent a good portion of their careers there. Your likes of PKs, your Busquets. There's been chances probably which have come and gone now to move those players on.
Yeah.
And they're still starting in that side week in, week out.
Yeah.
And it's not enough, is it? That you've missed your chance there to move those players on. And you do look at the side and you think, people, the blame game starts, doesn't it? It's like the players are looking to Messi to, what are you doing about this? You're not in form. The players then are looking at the manager. He's lost his job. I think also what everyone should be looking at is the president, what's going on behind the scenes there. The transfers you look over the last couple of years that they brought in, to name a few, Coutinho, Dembele, Griezmann, all incredible players. That these aren't bad players, but they've not performed for Barcelona for whatever reason. Whether it's the management, whether it's the culture they're not fitted into, whether it's not kind of mixing with you're not moving on those older players and bringing in kind of a new generation. There's a combination of a few things there, but I do think that at some point you've got to look behind the scenes, and that's where a lot of that blame's going to lie.
Yeah, and definitely, I think obviously Coutinho are younger options than what we mentioned there, sort of attacking wise. Dembele is only 22 years of age. I mean, it's not his fault. The money he went for, 100 plus million, whatever it was, it's not his fault, that price tag. And that's where the culture's wrong, because they should be building a side around them players. Luis Suarez, unbelievable, of course he is, but every dog has its day, and it's just passing on the torch, and you've got to move them on. And the Griezmann one for me, I don't think it's worked because, well, I know he came for a bit of money as well, but the way he conducted himself in the last few years, Griezmann, he was always Atletico through and through, and they always go to war with Barcelona, and it's always been that conflict, not as bad as a Real Madrid Barcelona. But I feel as though the way that all them tasty ties and when they went against each other in the last couple of years, I think he's made his bed, and you've now become the enemy type of thing. So it's kind of, you can't then come into this camp that you've been so against. I mean, I'm sure there's examples.
It's
like, take it to, go back to mid 2000s, when you and Chelsea had your battles, Liverpool and Chelsea, and then there was the whole rumour about, will Gerrard move, and also when you won in 2005, and that would be a similar feeling for me in terms of, hang on, we hate this guy, and he has been the thorn in our side, and he is, he is the enemy, and suddenly he comes across, and suddenly it's an arm around the shoulder, and
all feels a bit fake, isn't it? And not really genuine, and you don't know what's behind the scenes. Like you say though, I do think it's a big summer for Barcelona, or whatever you call it now. It's kind of off season, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that they do need to bring some people in. They do need to look at trying to get some of those people off the wage bill. I don't know what you do with a lot of those older players. Rumors that Messi wants to go or he's frustrated. I don't know what you do with him. I don't know where he goes. He's one of those players now that I just don't see him playing anywhere else.
Yeah.
The amount of money that he's on, just how settled he is. His entire life is in Barcelona. He's not going to want to up that life and move to Manchester or Liverpool or London. You know what I mean? I just don't see that. It's not going to happen.
I
think the other thing to consider as well is Barcelona's a huge kind of franchise, obviously merchandise wise, and just that kind of global fan base they've had, the new camp, the ticket sales and things like that. They've been affected just the same as everybody else by COVID. Their revenues have been hit massively. They've still got the really high wages that they're going to have to pay every week to these players, to these older players who aren't performing. They're still being paid every single week, and there's no money coming in, or there hasn't been any money coming in for a little while. So the club can't be in a financially great position either to go be splashing cash on anyone to rebuild the squad.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. And it's probably from a recruitment point of view of a football club, they've got the worst formula possible in a sense in terms of the predicament that they're in, because it's older players, massive wages with no sell-on value.
Yeah, can't get rid of
them. And that is the worst. That's the worst that you can have. And then you think now this big job that's at hand. I know Ronald Koeman played for Barcelona, of course he did, but is he the man to do this? Because does Lionel Messi respect Ronald Koeman, for example, or was he kind of hoping we need a Pep Guardiola, we need him to come back?
I would have thought. For me, it all happened very quickly. And it doesn't seem very. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but he doesn't seem very well thought out to me. It was just like, right, he's not got a job.
Yeah,
he's got some Barcelona connection. Get him in here. It's a big job this to rebuild. And does Koeman have the pedigree to fix this? I mean, I don't know if anybody does, but you think your Guardiola's at least of gods at that club would have a good chance of doing it.
Yeah,
we'll see with Koeman.
And that's what's interesting, because obviously he was the Dutch national manager before this, and before that obviously it was Everton, and prior to that was Southampton after Pochettino. Now he actually did a good job at Southampton. He got them to, I think, 7th in the league. So I think he did a really, really good job. Obviously he moved then to Everton, and I reckon if you spoke to Everton fans, they would probably describe his tenure and judge him on recruitment, believe it or not. And I think he spent like 150 million, I think. Brought no one in. That was the summer when we got Lukaku, so he didn't replace him. So I would say that, you can put down his failed reign or whatever just to poor signings and poor recruitment, which comes full circle because that is not the guy that you need right now.
You think that's the first question they'd have been asking him in any interview? What's your recruitment record like, Ronald?
Yeah, exactly. And then exactly. And then his first question was, "Is Messi staying?" That's probably how that interview went, right?
Yeah. Well, interesting times for them. Well, I guess we'll see as we go into next season. Or like we were saying last week, I don't think there's going to be a lot of big money moves this season unless someone like your Paris Saint-Germain starts the ball rolling by signing somebody for a lot of money. We'll see, I guess.
Well, if Barca do want to swap Messi for Lingard, we can talk. We can talk.
On the phone, you might be interested. You never know.
Yeah, I'll drive him out. I'll drive him there myself. I might even throw in a bag of balls as well, maybe. Whatever they want.
Yeah. Speaking of a bag of balls, what happened to United in the Europa League?
Bag of balls.
It's not a friendly needle for me. I'm sorry, but we've got to touch on this.
Yeah, I was kind of similar to the Bombers one. Sooner we get out of this topic, that'd be great. But it's disappointing, and I kind of had that gut feel last week when I said about it's not cut and dry. This Inter Milan, Man United final, Sevilla. They've been around the block. They've won it 5-6 times, in so many years. They know how to win. 2 defensive errors that cost us. 2 poor errors couldn't finish the team off as well. That's the most concerning thing, is we had chance after chance, couldn't get the goal. Sure enough, 10 minutes to go, they go down the field, score. And the problem that we find is you look towards the bench and there's only one person that can get you back into this tie, and it's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He is the only one, when I look at that bench, he's the only one that could score a goal, I think. I would honestly look and go, please tell me he's got his boots, because he's over Igalo, Lingard, Dan James, whoever you want to bring on. But Ollie is the only one that could have equalised for us, and that's the problem.
Yeah, so it's cost you there, I guess. And it's funny that this Europa League, it seems like there's an unwritten rule. Like, whatever happens in the Europa League, no matter what the draw is, Sevilla just have to win. It's just like an unwritten rule. I don't know how they do it, but they're thereabouts every year, aren't they? And I think as we look towards the final, when is the final?
That's tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning,
So tonight for
yeah. As we look towards that, it's going to be a cracking game, I think. Just looking at Inter Milan's performance, and specifically Lukaku, looks brilliant. And again, not to rub it into United fans, but they
would be signing.
That's one element. He looks like a player that United need right now. I guess they've had that chance, haven't they? And it just never worked out with him. I don't know what it was. I think there's got to be a responsibility on both parts, whether he wasn't quite managed right, but also himself, obviously his weight and things like that, and that he had those problems when he was at United. But he looks like he's, I don't know, got a handle on that now, and you can kind of see that class shining through, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say he's had a great season, and we're looking for a striker of similar ilk, shall we say? I mean, I would always argue, I've always wanted someone more clinical than Lukaku. Lukaku, for me, in the Man United shirt, was always, he needs 5 chances to score a goal. And he'd always score, when you're 2-0 up, 3-0 up, I noticed as well. We'd be home to Bournemouth. He scores, he scores goal 4 and 5. Big deal. You know what I mean? But yeah, he would be the type of player, if we hadn't sold him, we probably would be looking at somebody like him the seasons he's had. But it might actually surprise you, actually, because I'm actually going to predict. I don't know what you're thinking, but you may be leaning more towards the Seville sort of victory. But I actually think it's going to be Inter Milan, and the reason why I think that will be Inter Milan is Lukaku's obviously on fire. But I like Conte. Conte is a fantastic manager. I think he knows how to win. He won the Premier League. He's that type of brain, or football tactician. He'll shut the game out, I would say, tomorrow. It'll be a 1, it'll be a 2-0, it'll be, just slow the game down, kick him off the park if need be. That very much Italian approach, and I'm kind of waiting for that Inter Milan win, because you can already see it now on the football forums. It'll be all over the internet. There'll be the Europa League trophy, and there'll be Alexis Sanchez one side, Lukaku in the middle, and Ashley Young on the other side, all smiling, holding the cup. And
I'll be made up.
that's just what it's going to be. How do you feel it'll go? What's your thoughts?
I've gone back and forth on it. The more I've thought about it, I think you're right. I think Milan have probably got the better side. I think they've been a bit of a sleeping giant, haven't they, for the last couple of years? Like they're obviously a huge European club, and I think they've probably underachieved. Now with Conte in charge, and he's built a good side there. They should have, I think, too much for Seville, but with the Europa League, you can never count Seville out. They're always dangerous. I said this last week. There's a big merit to knowing how to win these competitions and having kind of the know-how of how to navigate the big finals. So I wouldn't want to count them out, but no, I agree. I do think it's Inter Milan's. I think they'll get the victory. We didn't actually mention the PSG Bayern game. How do you think that will go? Before we move on?
In terms of Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern, that's set up for a real barnstormer. Both of them. It's kind of interesting because two German teams, 2 French teams in the semi-finals, and both counterparts, the better, teams of them countries, dispatched the other 3-0, no problem. 3-0 semi-finals, both of them. So that obviously sets up for a real good final. And I think the interesting thing for me is, one, Paris Saint-Germain, now that they've got to the final, it's not just about getting to the final, it's now, taking that next step. So you've got your Neymars, your Mbappes. It's kind of, I don't want to say Di Maria because we've been here before, but they've got the individual brilliance, and it's kind of against that team, the team that Bayern are.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're a team for me is, if you look at that 8-2, the thing that I found astonishing was Bayern Munich had 6 different goal scorers in the 8-2.
Yep.
And all 8 goals was assisted by somebody else.
Wow.
So the goals come from anywhere.
Yeah.
The goals are coming from anywhere. And you've got someone like Lewandowski who, we discussed should have won the Ballon d'Or. The fact that they cancelled that competition was a joke, because games still went ahead. Just because Messi and Ronaldo aren't going to win it, you still got to give the award. But how do you think the final plays out?
Yeah, I do agree with you on what you said there. I think it's going to be almost a bit of a test of individual flair and brilliance against that team mentality. It's a tough one. Yeah. I think Bayern will probably beat them. I just think that the team mentality, the experience in those competitions of winning those competitions as a team, I think they'll come out from some top. Yeah.
And probably more to show you how good they've been, both of these teams. Let's say and we don't want to be disrespectful to PSG. We're not saying that they're not a team, but Paris Saint-Germain have already won 3 trophies this year. So Paris Saint-Germain has won 2 French trophies and the league.
Right.
Yes, there was a big asterisk against that because they finished the season after 27 games.
Yep.
So there is a big asterisk there. Not that it matters to them. And Bayern Munich are chasing that treble. So potentially you've got 2 teams. One can win a treble and one can do the quadruple.
2 top sides, isn't it? It's just 2 top sides. And like you say, on the day, if Mbappe decides to turn it on and has an absolute screamer, then they can easily win that game as well.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely be tuning into that. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, sure. It'll be a great game. I'll lean towards Bayern, but it's going to be a fantastic game for sure.
I guess moving on from footy, we'll talk a bit of MMA, I guess. Different one to start on. Before we kind of touch on last week's event, I wanted to get your thoughts on Paige Van Zant. It's a weird one for me, and you've got to navigate these topics kind of carefully, not to offend anyone and not to offend her in any way either.
Yeah.
So as we know, recently she fought on a UFC card late last month. I think late last month. It was the last fight on her contract with the UFC. She lost that fight, which was no great surprise. She's had a bit of an up and down career, lots of injuries. And on the back of that, she became a free agent. So she then gets the chance to go to numerous different organizations to sign a contract with them to fight. So she could re-sign with the UFC. She could sign with Bellator, where her boyfriend or her husband he fights for them. She decided, it blew my mind, to sign with Bare Knuckle FC, which is a smaller organization, Bare Knuckle Boxing, and it's a mad decision anyway. But it's even madder when you look at Paige herself and the way you think her career might go. The thing with Bare Knuckle Boxing, I guess, is that you're bare knuckle. You haven't got the protection of gloves when you're fighting. Paige Van Zant, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, who's never seen her or never seen a fight, Google Paige Van Zant and you'll instantly see why I'm baffled that she's joined a bare knuckle fighting organization. Her career, I think, is based a lot on. What I should say first is that she's an incredible mixed martial artist to have fought at the level she has is an incredible level of skill. She's fought some of the best women in the UFC. She's had some wins, she's had some losses. But I don't think she's ever going to be a champion. I don't think she was ever going to get that belt. She's not at like the top echelon. But I do think that she brings a lot of like commercial value to whoever she's fighting for, to the organization. But she's also got an amazing potential career there of like being on the TV, of being an analyst. She knows the game inside out. And without trying to sound horrendous here, she looks really good. And that helps when you are presented on the TV, when you're part of these organizations. The way you look does play a part. Unfortunately, that is the way of the world. So it blew my mind that she has then chosen at this stage of her career to go and sign for Bare Knuckle FC. I'm guessing she's got a lot of money for it. I'm guessing she'll have something in her contract which she won't. She's not going to fight anyone too dangerous. But you did bring up to me just earlier today that one of her old adversaries is in that organization as well, right?
Yeah. So one of the champions in Bare Knuckle is a lady called Beck Rawlins. Now she obviously left the UFC, similar to Paige Van Zant. But prior to doing that, a couple of years ago, Paige Van Zant fought Beck Rawlins in the UFC, and I would argue this was Paige Van Zant's not so much best performance, but certainly the more flash and the best knockout. She kicked her head off, basically. It was it's kind of a switch kick. I'll describe it as a Cantona kick, let's say. But yeah, so she beat Beck Rawlins. But the interesting thing is, Beck is obviously the champion here now in this division, in this sport. But you can't kick. You can't kick in this game. So, and Paige Van Zant, you look at a lot of her, her wins, or you look at a lot of her fights. Not too many knockouts there. You don't particularly think of Paige Van Zant good with the hands. Great boxer. Yes, she does have that dirty boxing clinch aspect to her, but I wouldn't think the knockouts is what she's synonymous with, shall we say?
Yeah. The shame is that she's kind of come out, because I think I'm not the only one who was outraged. Not outraged, but I was the only one who was surprised that this has happened. I think what she kind of came out and said was that she was out to prove that she's not just a pretty face, which it's all well and good. But I think she's the only one that loses here. If she's got this future career, you'd have thought as an analyst, or you'd have thought as a presenter, or they can work on those Fox Sport desks or whatever in the States. If your face is cut to shreds because you fought in a bare knuckle organization, I don't know if that job's still there.
Exactly.
So I was just surprised. I guess I always wanted to bring it up to see what you thought, because it's a mad one.
And just to sort of piggyback off that as well is, she's trying to prove a point, like what we're saying there, but she's a mixed martial artist. You've got a tough job as it is. You don't need to prove to me and Matt how tough you are, because we get it. We get it. We can't do it. We get it. So you don't need to go down those waters and hold your hand up and say, well, I look good, and it's not about, I'm not just a pretty face. And it's like, yeah, we know. But you are a big celebrity that relies on endorsements and sponsorship. Yes, you've got great talent, but there's other jobs out there that you can do. And in a sense, you're 26. You're 26 years of age. Yeah. You look at everybody on that bare knuckle roster, and you go, bloody hell. You go, end of the careers. I mean,
that's the one.
Bigfoot Silver, for example. You look at him and you go, Jesus. Being over across from the ring to him, bare knuckle. Good luck to you. But he's at the end of his career. Not 26. You're not jumping in at 26.
It's like where people go for a last place. It's the last place you would go if you were just desperate to make money and you were desperate to still compete, which I understand. But I think with Paige, she could have gone anywhere else. I think it's partly the ego here that's caught her. She wanted to prove a point, and it's also money. I'm sure she's got a heap of money to be the face of this organization. She's already been out doing press conferences. She will be on the front of every poster.
Yeah.
She's got a huge kind of social media following, popular with the fans. So she's just going to bring eyes to the sport. So very, very smart.
And,
to
and
bring
she's inseparable. Her and her husband are inseparable. You know, you can see it on her Instagram, and he fights in Bellator, and everyone just thought, oh yeah, they'll sign for Bellator. They'll try and get. They have it in a contract where they'll try and be on the same card, so they can travel together, they can train together. It's it's the ultimate love story in the fight game, if you can have that. But yeah, and you've got to ask, if it goes seriously wrong, you know, if it's a real bad injury or something like that, well,
yeah.
What happens? So,
although, if anyone's interested, all I would urge you to do is Google Paige Van Zant to start with.
Yeah.
But then also Google Artem Lobov bare knuckle fighting. I'm going to have a look at his face after his first fight with Jason Knight. And you'll see why I was just mind blown that Paige has gone and done this. But anyway, who are we to judge?
Yeah. Exactly.
I guess, the biggest kind of news in MMA world right now, I guess the fallout from UFC 252 last week. It was a good card, actually. I was really impressed with the card as a whole. A lot of good fights on there. I guess we can kind of touch on the kind of three main events if you want. They're the ones with the main talking points. First up, Dos Santos versus Rosenstruik.
Yeah.
Ruined my bet. This one, this is the one that ruined my bet. But Rosenstruik looked incredible. And I think for me, it just shows you the importance at heavyweight that just pure power can have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting, this card, because it's the first time ever since I've been betting on the UFC that all of my legs lost.
Wow.
I bet 5 fighters and didn't get a single one. So it's at least we didn't set up a podcast last week and I made recorded predictions. Thank God that we didn't do that. I would look like an idiot right now. Yeah. But yeah, Rosenstruik, great performance. Had a point to prove as well because Ngannou dished him in 20 seconds. The fight before, so he had to come out. Did what he had to do. I think TKO. 1 minute into second round. Did the job. Put his name back up there in contention, fighting with all the big guys up there, and it was nice to see a bit of respect as well after the bout. Both AT&T guys, and kind of embraced each other. He was sat down with JDS, but I know that I'd say the biggest thing that you probably want to talk about this fight is what about JDS's bangers and mash?
It's bangers and mash.
It's Tash.
Oh my God. I didn't get that then. Yeah, Tash, absolutely fantastic. It's up there with John Annex, but them two just need to have a Tash off. They do. Why don't they just they should hold the belt, shouldn't they? Oh, they should.
Similar to the BMF.
Yeah. The Tash.
Okay. Exactly. But I know that was a particular highlight of yours. But yeah, Rosenstruik did the job. Dangerous. I wouldn't like to fight that guy. Certainly if it wasn't bare knuckle. But anyway, great fight, good performance.
The next up was, I guess, the biggest surprise on the card. Actually, I will take credit. I did call this one, but
I was going to say,
not in the way I thought it was going to go.
I was going to say I'll let you break this one down because congratulations, you called the upset of the up and coming star in Sugar Sean O'Malley. But I'm no doubt, and I will get you to break this down, but I've got a feeling that although you take some pride in being correct, it was a head and heart thing, and you probably felt a bit deflated that it actually did happen. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I said last week, I kind of smelt an upset. I don't know what it was. It certainly didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen, but I did think that O'Malley was probably looking past Chito Vera a little bit. And it just shows that, Chito Vera is a dangerous guy. It started really well for O'Malley. He looked, obviously coming into this, he was the hype train. He was the next superstar in the making. All he had to do was win this and he would have been kind of straight in that top 5 contender. He'd have been in a title shot possibly before the end of the year, early next year. And he started really well. He manages distance really well. He throws those feints. He's really hard to read. he was throwing leg kicks himself. And it's just kind of ironic that he got caught by one leg kick, like a lower calf kick. And I don't know the science of it or the biology of it, but it looks like Chito Vera's hit something at the nerve or something on the back of his calf. And whatever that does, it leads to you kind of losing the ability to flex your ankle. I'm probably murdering this breakdown here, but loses the ability to flex your ankle. From nowhere, he literally fell over. I can't describe it any more than that. He just went down and lost the kind of ability to put weight on his leg. It was weird, wasn't it? Because he went down and even Chito Vera, his opponent, kind of looked at him and almost stepped back as if to be like, "You all right?" Because he just randomly fell over. Got up, gritted his teeth, got on with it. But he rolled it a few times. It looked like he'd rolled his ankle, or I thought maybe he'd hurt his knee. Just looked like he couldn't put weight on his ankle. Eventually, Vera takes him down and lands a vicious elbow. It was a vicious elbow. At that point, you don't know what's going through O'Malley's mind. Obviously, he's a tough guy, and he's done this before, where he's done a very, very similar injury, and he's fought through and actually won and survived. But I think Vera is a step up an opponent. He took a moment when he first saw that the injury take place, stepped back, but I guess that killer instinct kicks in, and he just decided to go ahead and end it. A lot of people I saw people on Twitter saying it was an early stoppage, but I thought it was a great stoppage by Herb Dean. He struggled a little flack over the last couple of weeks, but I thought it was a perfect stoppage.
I agree.
Put that massive elbow on the floor. There is literally no need for Sean O'Malley to take any more damage. Yes, it's his undefeated record gone, but there was no way he was getting back up to win that fight. Couldn't stand up, leg was done, took massive shots on the floor. Yeah, call it, get yourself fit and healthy, Sean, and come back again.
He got stretched out. So anyone that says it's an early stoppage, go, well, if the bloke's getting carted out in between rounds, unable to stand on his ankle, I don't think the fight will go his way, to be honest.
Yeah. He's a tough guy, and I think he would have tried to fight on, I think. And that's where you need the refs to step in and make that call for you, because your corner and yourself might not do that. He could have took some serious damage there because he just wouldn't have been able to get back up, I don't think, to put weight on the leg.
And like you said, and Vera that one elbow was enough for, there's no way Vera would have stopped, or he's lying on his back, so
it's the
take it. Wipe yourself down, recover, go again. But I had no problem with the stoppage at all. No problem.
And I guess you derailed that hype train a little bit, but he'll be back. He just needs to get this injury sorted here. I think he needs to it's the second time that something very similar has happened. And I mean, credit to Vera, because at first it looked like he was just doing a freak injury, but I do think it was caused by that leg kick. That's kind of started the process of the end of that fight. So hats off to Vera. He's a tough guy. He'll go up and get another higher ranked opponent now, and O'Malley will come back. Hopefully once he's fit and healthy, and he's always going to be a contender because he's ridiculously talented. I just hope he doesn't become one of those guys whose body lets him down. That's my hope for him.
Do you think they'll ever meet again?
I guess it depends what happens to Vera now, like where he's at. Because if he's on the way up, if he gets another win, he's not going to come back down and fight.
Why would he take it? Yeah.
I don't think so. I wouldn't say in any time soon. I don't think they'll fight again. He beat him at the end of the day, whether he was injured or not. He did that damage and he ended the fight. Would I like to see it again? Yeah, sure, one day. I think if they're both still around, it maybe happens, but I wouldn't be clamoring to see it again. I think it was pretty conclusive if we won that fight. Yeah. And then main event. The first thing to say about it was that it lived up to. It was a great scrap. It lived up to what we thought it was going to be. The end of a trilogy. It was a 5-round war, back and forth. They both inflicted damage on each other. In that second round, I thought it was very close to it being stopped there. Almost DC was saved by the bell, I think, because he was kind of out. He was rocked. He was down against the fence. The ref could have stopped that there. I think that saved by the bell a little bit. But DC did damage as well, and he had Stipe rocked. Very, very back and forth. The result was right in the end, and I guess my overall takeaway from it was that I think DC can go out, even though it's a loss, he can be proud that he was in that fight and that it was a competitive fight. It was 5 rounds.
Yeah.
He didn't lose. He didn't get knocked out. He didn't get embarrassed. He fought to the end, and it's kind of a good metaphor for his career. I think that that's how he goes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we say that, you know, metaphor for his career, and I just said it nearly, man. But you know, to do what he has done, he was the second double champ. Let's not forget, you know, he was, you know, great guy. You know, one of the best. My favourite guy, of course, it was a bit down that he lost, but as I say, I can't argue about the result 3-2. But I kind of, the disappointing thing for me is whether DC's own ego played a part in the game plan, in terms of he made all in the building up, in all the build up and everything that you see. He was always talking about, I can use my wrestling, but I'm going to stand and I'm going to trade with Miocic. And I kind of feel as though, did you can stay with him and stand and bang and to kind of prove the point? Because, you know, for me, early on in the fight, you're talking 1-1 after the second round, your eye, you can't see out of one eye. You just got to go to what you know best. And what you know best is take him to the floor. I know it's easier said than done, but Cormier does have that ability. And just grind out the win and get it win. Yeah, it might be boring and we won't see this great fight, but the result is what matters for you, DC. So you have to do everything in your power to get the victory. But no complaint.
You're absolutely right. And I forgot to even mention the eye pokes in that. I guess he played a big part. For both guys. Like Steve took an eye poke early on. Round.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that DC took was a doozy of an eye poke, and I didn't even see it at first. It happened that fast. I didn't even notice. But when you look on the replay, he was literally knuckle deep in his eye socket. It was pretty grim. And when he was in the, it's funny, isn't it? Because DC was kind of complaining a little bit when Goddard didn't see it, that he got poked in the eye, which was fair enough. And Goddard's come out since and kind of acknowledged it that he missed it. I didn't see it, so
I didn't see it.
I can't complain either. The ref didn't see it, but I think DC's a bit mad there to complain too much, because what if Goddard had seen it and he'd called the doctor in? He might have called that fight off, because the question would have been, DC, can you see? And the answer would have been, no, I can't. All right, fight over. So you look at it on that side and you're like, well, he's probably just as well they didn't see it for DC to be able to like see out the fight, because it would have been so disappointing to end like that. That's not how you would have wanted your career to end at all, is it?
Exactly.
And I do agree. I think that I think the ego did play a bit of a part. I didn't really think about it until I saw the interview when Joe Rogan interviewed DC after the result. So he's lost. He didn't know what to say. He obviously hadn't, and I guess this is kind of the mentality you have to have. But it was almost as if he hadn't even considered that he might lose that fight. He didn't take his gloves off. He didn't kind of say, "That's it for me. Thanks for everything." He didn't have that moment of retiring. He just looked flummoxed. He looked like he completely hadn't considered that he might lose that fight. And that's when you're looking at Stipe, who you now can't argue that he's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. And to the fact that you can go into that fight and not even consider losing, it does show a bit of that there must have been a bit of ego in there. And DC genuinely thought that he would beat him, he would knock him out.
Yeah. Stipe is officially the baddest nice guy on the planet.
He is.
You can't take it away from him.
Yeah, and and that leads on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, because I think as amazing as his record is, as he is he's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, and you can't argue with the amount of defenses who he's beat. But he's not a needle mover. I saw the stats today. They released the figures, and it was somewhere around the 500,000 pay-per-view buys. Which, what were you saying the number was for Masvidal? 1.6?
1.3, I think.
1.3 million.
Per-view buys.
And that was on 6 days notice.
Yeah.
For the heavyweight,
in a pandemic.
In a pandemic, yeah. Yeah. For the heavyweight championship of the world, for the end of a trilogy fight, you'd expect bigger numbers than that, wouldn't you? Especially when everyone's sat at home, they can't go out, there's nothing else to do. And for me, it speaks a little bit to Stipe that he isn't that needle mover. He isn't your stereotypical heavyweight champion. He isn't the most feared man on the planet. He's not seen as a dangerous guy. He's a really nice guy, incredibly skilled, incredibly talented. but it wouldn't surprise me at all if the UFC, when that decision's made, Stipe gets his hand raised, Dana's sat in the corner just like, oh, for God's sake, will somebody beat it? Because I don't think it doesn't fit the plan. It doesn't fit the best case scenario for Dana. Because the best case scenario for Dana, which is obvious now, is in kind of what's happened this week, was that DC was going to win that, and he was going to call out Jon Jones, and him and Jon Jones were going to go at it at heavyweight. And it's a crying shame that we don't get that. It's a crying shame because that is an incredible fight, and it's only now that you see it afterwards that you can see that was the plan. Because straight away, once that fight's done, once the smoke's cleared, Jon Jones relinquishes his light heavyweight belt and he says, I'm going to heavyweight.
Yeah.
And it's sad for DC that they never got that chance. But it'll be really interesting to see how Dana and UFC play out this heavyweight division now, because it's full of killers. It's suddenly a very good division. And I'm really keen to see where this goes. What do you think next for the likes of Jones, but also for Stipe?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right what you say in terms of the moving the needle, everything that's transpired since. One thing that I would say about Miocic, he does remind me a lot of Demetrius Johnson, unfortunately, as in unbelievable at what he does. Mixed martial artist, incredible. I mean, DJ is probably the best, I would say, in terms of actual ability and what he does. I would say he's probably the best to ever have done it, really. But too much of a nice guy and not a needle mover, and that kind of takes away from just how good he is. Now flip that to Cormier. One thing that I would say is, I very much grew up watching pro wrestling, so I've always been that storyteller, that I always like the story and what that can happen. And what I would say, and not to look into this, but DC didn't take off his gloves when he left the octagon. He left his gloves on. Now, that might not mean anything. That might be spur of the moment. That might be he didn't think he was going to lose, and now he's got to give this interview live on TV. I get it. But for me, as a former pro wrestling fan, I look at that and think, is one more there? Is there something happening? And I understand probably not, because he's come out and said, listen, my time's up, right off to the sunset. But then part of me thinks, you didn't want to go out like this. And even if you did, you deserve to have a full arena. Yeah. He deserves a full arena to say goodbye, take off the gloves, which obviously we can get onto what it means for heavyweight. Now, I would like to think that Miocic fights Ngannou next. I'm sure you'd agree. You can't look past Ngannou. Yeah. And obviously this will be their second fight. And I would say that in the first fight, that was the best Miocic I've ever seen. Yep. To beat Ngannou the way he did, nullified him. And even similar to the DC in this recent fight, kind of nullifying a game plan and working him out. And you can argue that Ngannou sort of get the rise too quickly. So I think, and I don't know what your thoughts are, but building them two is that next fight. What do you think Ngannou's learned from that, first one, or what's the approach?
I just think now Ngannou's a much more well-rounded martial artist. I think when he came in, and by the time he, like you say, he did get, because of his size and his power, he did get rushed up that division very, very quickly. And I think someone with Stipe's skill level as a boxer, but also good wrestler, he was able to kind of nullify what he was able to stay out of the way of Ngannou's big shots. The difference this time is that Ngannou's gone away and beaten some really good people. And like I said earlier about Rosenstrike, there's a big emphasis, more so at heavyweight than anywhere else, that it only takes one shot, really. If one of those catches you, and Ngannou more than anybody, if he catches you, it's good night. It's absolutely good night. And I guess the question now is, how well-rounded are his skills as a mixed martial artist? Can he mix in some wrestling, some takedown defense? Can he mix in some leg kicks? Can he give Stipe more to think about? And I think, it's the fight to make. I don't think you. The reason being is that when Ngannou lost and when he had a couple of defeats, the UFC told him to go away and get himself right, win some fights, bring up his skills. He's done everything they've asked. I don't think they can pass him over now as the next in line. Obviously, the difficulty is that Jon Jones has relinquished his light heavyweight title and he's come up to heavyweight. Now, for me, Jon Jones only fights for a heavyweight title. He's not fighting anybody else before that. He goes straight in at a title shot. So the way that looks to me is that he's fighting the winner of Stipe and Ngannou.
No, I agree.
Incredible. Like the good thing is it gives Jon Jones a bit of time to put some size on, because he's gonna have to, especially those skinny little legs. He's gonna have to put some size on. But he won't be a million miles away. Like Stipe was what 233, 236 when he fought DC. Jon Jones won't be too far behind that. He'll be considerably lighter than Ngannou when they fight, I'm sure.
And it's good timing, like you say, because Miocic and Ngannou, second time, can't overlook Ngannou.
Nope.
But, you know, not to say he's far away, but now Jon Jones take this as a time to just build on weight and get used to being that heavier guy. You know, if he goes to McDonald's, he'll get a Big Mac, and they'll probably get 6 nuggets as well now, because he's got to build, you know, maybe large chips.
Like that, eh?
He's got to build a bit more, you know. So I think it's just great timing. Purely, the UFC will spin it as the weight thing, and so I don't think that'll worry Jones sort of too much. But then the interesting thing is, while all this is playing out, going back to my earlier point about DC and the gloves, is DC will probably be calling these fights. So it'll make you wonder, sat there, you know, he's got the best seat in the house, you know, that itch, or, you know, I just, as I say, I'm not too sure, but, and that's kind of,
I can see what you mean, and there's, he'll always have that desire now, to go out with a win, and he'll always be disappointed or regretful that he didn't know he should have done this, or he should have done that. I just worry that it's a slippery slope. That if like you keep going, oh, one more fight, and then you lose again, and then you're like, oh, one more fight, and then before you know it, you've lost your last 4 fights, and then your reputation is completely tarnished. I think it wasn't the result he wanted, but you can go out, yes, with a loss, but with a competitive loss, one that went to the judges, and one where he had his opponent rocked at one point. He came through adversity with the eye poke. Like, aside from a win, that's the next best way to go out competitive. I just worry that as soon as your head's out that game and you relax for a little bit, it's very difficult, especially with someone like DC, he's going to pile weight on straight away. Like, it's not easy for him to get into fight shape, I don't think. I just worry that, and like we've said, that division is full of absolute killers now. It's a slippery slope. So I hope that's the last we see of Cormier in the octagon. As sad as that, I hope it's the last.
No, that's fair enough. Well, and I think, obviously, towards, let's say, New Year's Eve, or towards the end of the year, we'll probably get that Miocic and Ngannou second fight, I would say. Jon Jones probably needs to get ready for, you know, a March, April, maybe, something like that. So that would, obviously, he would fight the winner. So let's say it's Jones versus Miocic, which is probably the most likely. And I think Jones does beat Miocic. I think Jones can beat Miocic, and quite just his set of skills. Not so comfortably, because that's, again, disrespectful to Stipe, but I think Jones certainly, for anyone, if anyone can take it off Miocic, it's him. Now, then that leads me on to, in terms of history, DC likes to break history in a sense, or make history, or look for those records. And I would say that Jon Jones is the champion, you know, this time next year. Let's say he calls Cormier out, and he's on the commentary table, and he says, hey, you didn't get the send-off you deserve. He's the champion. Now, DC would be, I would say, the only fighter to ever fight in 2 consecutive trilogy fights. Right? Third one with Miocic, third with Jon Jones. So that's why I'm going down that angle. I know it's, again, far-fetched. It's pro wrestling. It's down that thing. But it makes sense. But I'm going to throw a matchup on you here, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Because in the fantasy booking world, or I would say the biggest fight you can ever make in UFC, ever, in my opinion, would be George St. Pierre versus Conor McGregor, I would argue. Now, chances are we're probably going to see GSP next year, and he's probably going to fight Khabib around April time, I would say.
Yep.
Now, so that's kind of GSP done. Now, the second biggest fight, in my opinion, that the UFC could ever make would be Jon Jones as heavyweight champion versus a guy called Brock Lesnar. What are your thoughts on that?
Sign me up. Sign me up. The competitive needle of that would be insane. It kind of brings together the mixed martial arts fans, the pro wrestling fans. It'll be absolutely huge, and it'll be competitive as well, as long as Lesnar's in shape. He's obviously got that wrestling pedigree. So has Jon Jones. Dangerous guys, big names. Fine, yeah.
Two specimens, two sheer athletes. And Brock Lesnar is not. I mean, I think he's off TV at the moment, WWE wise, so he'll probably be coming back soon. But WrestleMania is always around April, so Lesnar will probably done by about April. Now, he always around that time of year, he always flirts with the UFC, or he always tries to contract negotiations either before Mania, after Mania. It's kind of what do they do storyline wise, because usually he's the champ or something like that. So it's kind of, does he come back to WWE? And that would be a great time around this time to start talking, have a meeting with Dana, and just see Jon Jones walking about. You know, they had a bit of beef back and forth on Twitter a couple of years ago, I think. I don't know. It's just a nice little bargaining chip for Lesnar, and it'll be very, very interesting. International
Fight Week maybe next year, Vegas.
Yeah,
could well be. That's yeah. I mean, just stranger things have happened, so let's see how it all plays out. Hey, that's exciting. I guess to wrap up, this weekend, I mean, we're not doing too much here, so I'll definitely be tuning into the UFC card. It's not a huge one, but the main event's pretty good. Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munoz.
Yeah.
Edgar's a massive outsider, which is a bit mad. Obviously, he's gone down a weight, which I am usually against. I don't like when people cut even more weight than they normally would in the normal weight class. Yeah. There's a few examples where it's gone horrendously wrong. I know you've got a few examples where it's gone actually all right.
Yeah, well, obviously we know Frankie Edgar obviously used to be lightweight champion. You know, went down to featherweight, now bantamweight. So that's kind of unusual in that sense. But the only two I can think of that have been champions, and because you always see it going the other way. You know, the older you get, the heavier you get, and you go to the division up, not two divisions down. So the only thing I can, in terms of that template or precedent, is the only two guys that I've seen that have won a championship first at a higher weight division and then found success and won a belt in a lower division was Randy Couture. So Randy Couture won. He came into the UFC, obviously won the heavyweight championship, and then had the amazing trilogy with Chuck Liddell, winning the light heavyweights, and Liddell, Tito, all that type of stuff. Won the light heavyweight. So there's one example, and the other is BJ Penn. So I think he was originally a lightweight, went up, won the welterweight belt. I think he went away for a while or a couple of years or something, came back, and then obviously won the light heavyweight belt, which you can argue was kind of his weight anyway, but I'm basing it off, you won the belt here, you go down a division, and win the belt. So there is precedent you can find success, it can be done, I should say.
I should just caveat my original statement was that I don't like when people do this. You've just seen it go wrong so many times. TJ Dillashaw springs to mind, just looked like a crack addict. It was awful. Yeah. However, Frankie Edgar probably was, especially at lightweight, was really small for a lightweight. If anybody can make that cut safely and still be competitive, it's Frankie Edgar. I'm excited to see how this goes, because if he wins that, he's straight. I think because of his name, he'll be straight in there with the contenders in the bantamweight division, which is already a ridiculously tough, ridiculously high talent division. And he'll be right in there in the mix. Similar to probably to what happened with the Jose Aldo, where he just gets kind of pushed to the front of the line because of who he is, and because he's probably not got that many fights left in him. He's been around forever. So yeah, it's a win-win for Frankie Edgar, because he's not expected to win that one, and it's his first fight at that weight. The guy's fight is no joke either. Knocked out Cody Garbrandt. I mean, this was an old version of Garbrandt where he just kept seeing red and
very emotional.
Yeah.
I remember us watching it live, actually, with the Windsor Ale House.
Yeah, we did.
He was there. That was the fight.
I can remember us screaming at the TV at Cody Garbrandt, saying, "What on earth are you doing?" But yeah, Munoz knocked him out, so he's obviously got that power in his hands. I'm really interested to see how Frankie Edgar goes. But I've actually put some money on him, because he was a 3-1 outsider as of yesterday. Don't know what it'll be come kind of fight night. It'll be interesting to see how the weigh-in goes. Obviously, it usually says a lot about how you think that fight's going to go, and people might change their opinions when they see him on the scales, how he looks. But yeah, I'd back Frankie Edgar in this one, so I'm keen.
Yeah, no, that's a good bet. But one thing I think we should finish on this really with Frankie Edgar, and I kind of want to ask you is, tough opponent in Pedro Munoz, be a good main event. But Pedro Munoz is tough. What happens if Edgar loses?
It could be his last fight, especially if again, a lot of it depends on that weight cut. If that weight cut was really tough, then and he loses, I don't know if you're going to want to do that again. And again, like I said before, he hasn't got that many fights left in him. If you lose this one, you're a long way off a title shot, aren't you? And if you're not in it for the title shots, what are you in it for? So you might well see him here have like a bit of a last hurrah at this weight. It's kind of the last roll of the dice for him. It's not happened at the other weights now. He's a million miles away from kind of being ranked in those divisions. So it could be Frank Edgar's last fight, which is a big occasion, because he's lightweight champ. He's been incredible in those divisions over the last couple of years. How long he's been around? 10 years, probably, at least. He's fought everyone in those divisions. Incredible career. Hopefully it's not his last fight, but you're right in saying that a loss here could well be.
And similar to DC, is similar to, in terms of the UFC royalty, he deserves a full, if it is his last one, he deserves a full arena. He deserves, in New York, he deserves that. He deserves the real send-off, doesn't he? He's another one of those.
That's the biggest shame about the way it's gone with the pandemic and stuff. And you've got these people that, DC deserves that moment to take his gloves off and put them in the centre of the octagon and walk off to a round of applause. So does Frankie Edgar. They're not going to get it here, so I hope he gets the win and we get to see him again.
I'm glad DC didn't actually take those gloves off, because I reckon I would have been crying my eyes out, so I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah,
well, who knows?
I'm really interested to hear from DC actually. Once kind of the dust has settled, I'm sure he'll be on. He'll be on with Helwani relatively soon. I'm interested to see where his head's at. Yeah,
and and I think in terms of wrapping up, obviously this is our second podcast. Now Matt will tell you about some news for next week. That we've kind of come to an agreement in today or so. So there is some news about the podcast. But I just want to finish up and say, obviously, everyone that tuned in last week, hopefully you tuned in again this week. I'm sure Matt thinks the same as me. Thank you for the support. Very positive messages coming through. You haven't shot us down yet, which is good. And we want to keep doing it. Make sure you like, subscribe. Our plan is to get obviously a bit of a channel going. But yeah, that's all from me really. What about yourself, Matt?
Yeah, I guess just huge thank you for anyone who's tuned in. Do you want me to reveal the name now, or should we do like a reveal of like when we put the channel?
Maybe we'll say the name next week. Give them a little bit of a. I'm a storyteller. You gotta dangle the old carrot for next week.
Should have rehearsed this. Yeah, we've settled on a name, but all will be revealed. So hang tight for that one. Thanks for tuning in. Have an awesome weekend.